Hello everyone. Welcome to my research talk. I am Merve Sahin and I am Curatorial Fellow at the Aggregate Space Gallery in Oakland, California, where I am currently working on creating an art experience on the positive effects of embodiment illusion in virtual reality systems, such as head-worn displays with tracking, mobile VR, and web-based game engines that can be accessible with only link share. Today, though, I am going to talk about my Master of Art thesis, research on the artist Harold Cohen and his journey with computer program Aaron. Aaron is a cybernetic artist who could generate original artwork that is designed for drawing in early 1970s and later coloring after 1990s. The name of the software comes from Harold Cohen's Hebrew name, Aaron. For those of you who have not come across with the artist, Cohen was a painter who is now studied in the fields visual arts, psychology, computer science, and of course art history. He is known for his abstract expressionist paintings in the early and mid-1960s, as well as for his participation in the 13th Venice Biennial and documented 6 in Kassel, Germany. Cohen died on April 27, 2016 at his home in Ensenadas after teaching at the University of California, San Diego. Aaron is a software that is available to download, and its code is available to change and develop even further. What was non-trivial about teaching a machine to draw and color is the idea that art making comes from an introspective methodology that is shaped by the both abstract notion of culture and the privileged access of the artist to his mind. To quote from Cohen, "There are actions in the underlying structures of behavioral aspects which are evidently not fashioned by the constraints of any particular culture." The freehand drawing was one of those behaviors, according to the artist, that can be formulated as discrete states and be able to talk to a software. There is a variety in terms of what Aaron can paint, such that the cybernetic artist can produce both monochromatic drawings and figurative paintings in between a very short time. The computational representation using language was what gave Aaron a power to be able to represent its knowledge and learning process with visual imagery. The differentiation between conceptual and technological arts were trackable in the case study of Harold Cohen, with the artist's participation to document 6 in 1977. It was an exhibition where there were many conceptual artists, such as Joseph Beuys, Ant Farm, and John Jonas. However, the group name in which Cohen was presented was Sahin machine, translated as drawing machine. Even though Documenta only named the group with reference to technology after many editions, the curatorial selection could not locate Cohen in the larger groups of conceptual art. Then the question would be, what are the characteristics of collaboration between Harold Cohen and Aaron that defines them as a conceptual art project? The very use of artificial language as a medium of artworks had a compatible method of inquiry with the conceptual artists, since the language ultimately is a communication method to transfer meaning. The working mechanisms of Aaron revealed that the artificial and natural languages could be embedded in the visual imagery. The syntactical relationships that govern computer programs are not fundamentally different from the grammar and lexicon of any natural language. Conditional branches demonstrate that this is as an example. When a computer program implements an if-then statement, the semantics of conditionality manifests itself through the grammar and lexicon of artificial language, in a similar fashion how a natural language will function. Harold Cohen found that the affinity to use language correlates with an interest on drawing during the development of a young brain. He says, as a child's technical resources and skills improve, it will be her conceptual grasp of the external world. Finally, that limits what she can do. End of quote. Philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein voiced the idea of language and how it limits our conceptual grasp as The limits of my language mean the limits of my world. End of quote. The radical view that the language is embedded in our conceptual understanding of the world was an appealing standpoint for Cohen when he was teaching Aaron how to draw and color. Cohen claims that the visual representations can be formulated in such a way that the visual form acts as a language and could potentially mean the characteristic feature of both the artwork and the medium. Given this definitive potential for language in the visual forms, can we say that the visual language and natural languages share the same category in the linguistics as syntax? In Cohen's view, the syntax of the computer programming language corresponds to the reality of Aaron in a way that is semantically meaningful for human understanding. In 1950, British mathematician Alan Turing posed the questions, "Can machines think?" arguing that there is a certain ambiguity about the words think and machine. He conceives of a game known as the Turing test, which will enable him to rewrite this problem. The initial game is between three people, a man, a woman, and an interrogator, in a place where no player can see any other player. Man tries to make the interrogator believe that he is a woman, while the interrogator tries to identify which one of the players is male or female by asking questions. If man will win the game, it means that he can successfully imitate being a woman and fool the interrogator. With this scenario established, Turing poses a new question. What will happen if a machine takes the part of a man in this game? If the machine pretends to be human and passes the test, this would not make the machine a human, according to Turing. Turing claims that this would make the machine a thinking thing, and passing the test is a sufficient condition for being regarded as thinking. According to the terminology of computer science at the time, passing the test as a computer would mean the computer could successfully mimic human behavior. Giving Turing's idea of mimicking human behavior using computer machinery to satisfy the condition to be named as intelligent or thinking being, Cohen posed his own question. What would be the minimum condition under which a set of marks may function as an image? It was a question that would come to have significance in the history of Western art criticism with the intellectual leadership of Michael Fried and Clement Greenberg under the label of formalism. That is, the formal quality of artworks such as shape and color are evaluated as the most important aspect of an artwork. This question led Cohen to find the minimum conditions under which a human could perceive a painting created by a computer and call it an original artwork through the definitions of formalism. Before inventing Aaron, Harold Cohen found that the aesthetic camp formalism had afforded a liberty to isolate the minimum condition of being drawing and coloring. The projects that followed Tribune and before the event had followed the same artistic path, with a focus on the coloring and closed form and spatial arrangements of the medium of painting. After exploring the methods of various painting camps from Cubism to Abstract Expressionism, Harold Cohen was searching for a new way of transforming the classic medium painting, and he explored the field of artificial intelligence as a methodology. According to art critic Michael Fried, two-dimensional canvas restriction of the painting limited the production of original artworks, and the mediums of painting and sculpture should preserve their qualities without the introduction of theatricality, such as in the case of Donald Judd. Cohen agreed that the painting should preserve the notion, presentness is grace. Cohen retired turtle when he was seeing visitors getting distracted and misattributed the robotic appeal to the overall idea of the exhibition, instead of collaborative effort between man and machine to create intelligence. When it comes to the comprehending the worldview that Aaron invented in, a linguistic analysis of the word technology seemed accurate in my research. Technology is a word in the contemporary culture that went through somewhat biased Western worldview and lost its original connotation, which is more compatible with ancient view of technology as a mean for development and learning. Any person who was uttering the word technology in 1970s had a different comprehension of the world without user-friendly and application-oriented version we have today. There was a dichotomy in the everyday use of the world, such that it created a division of evil versus good, and both sides were biased towards another. The way, however, Cohen questioned the fundamental issues of formalist painting resulted in a creative intervention during the early development of cybernetics. His approach was fundamentally about the cognitive approximation of computer programming to human thinking, and the approximation to thinking through mimicking behaviors. Those scientists and artists active during the early days of cybernetics who were interested in pursuing an interdisciplinary agenda for arts were united by the definitions of cybernetics. That is, creating an artificial life depends on capacity for learning and giving itself a feedback. In the 21st century, the understanding of cybernetic technology has resulted in an approach to defining the field of artificial intelligence. That is, the cybernetic entity should be able to perform in an environment of unsupervised learning as an autonomous mechanism. The machine governs the tasks by changing both procedural and descriptive knowledge through feedback. The contemporary notion, neural network system, is ultimately advanced versions of the feedback mechanisms that Harold Cohen used. In his work, Harold Cohen did not centralize technology as an artifact, but rather viewed it as a learning process that brings back and forth understanding and ties technology into a search for truth. The work on technology and cybernetics is an epistemological project rather than simply artifact making. Cohen demonstrated that his intellectual journey in relation to technology is strongly grounded as an epistemological and ontological project. In the fictional writing, the protagonist is the primary character, who experiences the events, makes the important decisions, and stimulates the story to moving forward. Harold Cohen was a protagonist of a long intellectual history of many academic disciplines and their interactions during post-war era. Cohen's unorthodox decision to learn computer programming from scratch faced challenges of hyper-specialized disciplines and finally reached his goal to create an autonomous machine, Aaron, were a showcase of how the seminal works of centuries are a collection of progress and a deep engagement with the past. I find it unfortunate that there are tests that would ask participants to differentiate an art done by a human artist versus a computer program, where the artworks of Aaron and Cohen would be in the examples. Often the point of those tests is to show that computer art is somewhat appealing and creative, yet it leaves the participant with a dissatisfaction about the importance of being a human artist. Even though historical doctrine of art praised the object, it is the artist and the process of art making that is valuable in the eye of spectator. The very fundamental comprehension and application of artificial intelligence in arts is in fact a conceptual activity. Cohen's search on the idea of drawing was transferable and discrete enough to be embedded in an artificial language, at a point where Aaron became capable of creating original artworks and acted independently. Thank you very much for listening to my talk, and I hope you enjoyed it.